low priority and they didn't get to it, and we finally got the letter approving this on, well, the letter is dated October 1st. So it's been going on for quite a while. Yeah, thank you. Anyway, so what the hearing tonight will be about is taking the report from the state and making the recommendation to council to include it in our code. So all the work has been done long ago, and it just sat there for a long time. With that, I'm going to open the public hearing and ask for staff report.
Sure. That was a good, quick summary. I do want to give one clarification for our friends over at the Department of State Lands. It wasn't that we were low priority, it was that they were low on staff. They had essentially one staff person doing every single local wetland inventory submitted to them across the entire state. And it's a very lengthy process. These documents are extremely long, extremely technical. They did the best they could, but yes, it did take a significantly long amount of time. But relatively speaking, I've heard of local wetland inventories taking even longer. So work was, I'll start with this approval letter that was mentioned by the chair as a jumping point. So, October 1st, we received a letter from the Department of State Lands, which is final notice from the Department of State Lands that essentially kicks off local government's processes for adopting local wetlands and local wetland inventory. So this approval letter is embedded in the city code as kind of the final piece that we get from the state that says that they have checked all of the work, they've worked with the consultants, the city has adhered to all the statewide criteria for processes, and they are signing off on it for the city to begin its adoption process. Just to go back into a little bit of the background information, this local wetland inventory was mandated by the state when the city was awarded the urban growth boundary expansion back in 2019. And every city across the state, when they are awarded or when they expand their urban growth boundary, they're required to go through this local wetland inventory process. As such, the city sought grants and resources to fund this project. It was funded through the Metro 2040 grant in 2019 as part of the master planning for the urban growth boundary. So it was cobbled together with the Kingston Terrace master plan and everything that went into that entire process. It was the final task that the city was required to do until we could execute and close out that grant agreement with Metro. So when we got this approval letter, I went to Metro and I said, hey, good news, we finally got the approval letter. We got the last little bit of reimbursement that Metro still owed us. I wrote a memo. Mira, the finance manager, she submitted the final invoices, and Metro closed out the grant that we had been working on for the last 5 years. So it's a good milestone. We're done with that planning portion of this process. I sent all the commissioners a memorandum which summarizes what I went into in that presentation that I gave at that workshop. Our consultant for this that we hired was David Evans and Associates. In the spring of 2024, we sent out letters of requesting property access to about 100 properties in Kingston Terrace, and we received 4 property owners that granted us access, including Commissioner Blair. And so what happened was that when that happens, and it's pretty common, the consultants to do their analysis will go in and look at satellite imagery across different seasons, look at historical data, look at LIDAR, vegetative analyses, things of that nature to get a kind of a broad idea of where these local significant wetlands are. The map is broad. It doesn't supersede, well, any developer that develops will still have to provide the city with a wetland delineation. And there's an important distinction between wetland delineations, which are a much shorter, smaller scale process, and the local wetland inventory. The local wetland inventory is urban growth boundary wide. Delineations are property wide. Local wetland inventory identifies locally significant wetlands, and the locally significant wetland is different than a non-significant wetland, if you would like to call it that, in that it has proven ecological value, adds to the overall watershed ecological value, meaning it has endangered species, significant wetland vegetation, wetland soils that are really good for wetlands, and it allows for the city to provide for extra protections for those locally significant wetlands. A regular wetland within Kingston Terrace and everywhere across the state has protections, but those protections are generally processed through the Department of State Lands. So if a developer comes in and they want to develop on top of a wetland, they have to go to the Department of State Lands and submit for what is called a removal fill permit. And depending on how significant you're affecting the wetland, those removal fill permits can be quite expensive. They can have quite an extensive amount of mitigation that's required. But again, that's all done at the state level. I'm not going to give the PowerPoint, right? I already gave that PowerPoint. If you want to pull up the map, that would be helpful. Thank you. So it's very possible that, I guess it's in the PowerPoint. It's on like slide 8 or something. So it's very possible that when a developer comes in and they want to develop on land that has locally significant wetlands, they do a delineation, and then that delineation might deviate from what the local significant wetland map shows, in which case the city will have to revise our maps to more clearly delineate where those significant wetlands are, because these were done through non-on-the-ground surveys. An interesting thing did happen while we were in the process of developing the local wetland inventory, is that back in 2023, as you're aware, New Home Company and Pacific Community Design hired SWCA to perform their own local wetland inventory. In the middle of our process, we were a little bit ahead, but PCD and New Home Company came to the city and they said, hey, we're actually in the process of doing our own local wetland inventory for the rest of the west side of Kingston Terrace. So the properties that you see on this map that are just to the southeast of where the town center is located. Right here. This is the new one. Keep this one up, Ronnie. This is helpful. So this is that encompasses the one that was just done.
We lost it.
Move stuff around here. Sorry. That's great. Thank you. There we go. So SWCA was performing work on this piece right here. And as you can see, this has significant wetlands. And then on our map, it also has some other wetlands and some streams. And so they came to the city and they said, hey, since you guys are already in the queue for review at DSL, can our consultant work with your consultant and combine them at the same time and kind of piggyback off of you? And they did have property access. So we said, yeah, that's great. Let's do that, because then we'll have more precise data. So it actually worked out pretty well, and we were able to get boots on the ground over there at that property and comprehensive inventory. In this letter sent by the Department of State Lands, I want to point out that in paragraph 4 on page 1, The LWI and functional assessment also form the foundation for your wetland planning under statewide planning goal 5, and the LWI must be adopted by the city per the goal 5 requirements, meaning that the city doesn't really have any legislative authority to not adopt the LWI because the state has approved it. And in my mind, there's no real good reason not to adopt it because it does provide one piece that, going back to the difference between wetlands and locally significant wetlands, wetlands have to go through state permitting processes. Locally significant wetlands have, in our code, a 100-foot buffer around them that cannot be encroached upon. So instead of having it to go through a removal process, simply cannot touch a locally significant wetland. You have to provide a 100-foot buffer around it. So it's not even a mitigation measure, it's an avoidance measure to completely avoid them. And that's an important distinction as well. So here we are at our first hearing with the Planning Commission. You are all pretty well aware of this because we've gone through the process before and I provided that workshop. We'll see if I'll be able to provide the same workshop to the council prior to their first hearing in January, but if not, then I will provide them with that I provided the commission with at the workshop. But we're at our first hearing. The staff is recommending that the commission recommend approval to the city council, and upon the city council adopting it, this, Ron, can you go to the map that has them both? The next slide. No, it's one slide down. Slide down. No. So after the council adopts the wetlands map, that map that you see there will replace the map in the city code, figure 16114-10, which only includes the local wetland inventory that was done for the town center. And so it'll be a much more concrete point toward. It's just the commission has any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions for staff?
I have a question regarding some of the maps in the report. It was unclear to me that if on the maps showed some areas that were outlined in green and then other areas of streams that were just blue only. It's not shown on that particular map. Maybe you could explain the difference when it shows green around the stream versus just a blue line.
Certainly. So let's take this one for example. They have a green line around them because those were the ones that were identified as locally significant. They also have a blue line that's offset from them, because that blue line illustrates the 100-foot buffer that is the wetland protection zone. So no development can happen within the offset blue line, and then the green line just simply illustrates that it's a locally significant wetland. All of the locally significant wetlands are also these hashed wetlands. It is a little confusing because they're two different colors.
Yeah.
I'm going to see if I can maybe, it's a static map, so I'm not sure exactly how they made it. I might be able to make my own map prior to adoption that is a little bit clearer and more concise, because we would really want it to be one color. One color for all the significant wetlands and one color for all the other wetlands, and just make it a little bit clearer. So thank you for identifying that confusion, because when I first looked at this, I was a little confused by it as well. So again, the green lines illustrate the significant wetlands as well as the hash. So if it's not hashed, it wasn't identified as significant. And then the blue lines illustrate the buffer around the significant wetlands. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Now, over on the far east section that's in the Rivermead area, there are some streams that have green around a portion of the length of them, but then there's gaps where it's only a blue stream. That's
the same map that's on the board.
Well, it shows it a little a little larger scale on some of the other slides, but it's unclear in the map.
I think he's looking at the map that came with the letter.
It was an addendum in one of the in the detailed report.
Oh, I don't have the report in front of me.
It's a little unclear what that meant, and I was wondering if it meant that they didn't have access to actually go and inspect it, and so they couldn't.
With that particular property, the Bankston property, we did not have access, no.
Okay.
But as you can see, there are significant wetlands going throughout that property, including up the stream until it gets into a little bit of the highland. It's still the riparian area, but a little bit of the highland riparian. I do also want to mention one thing, that the city received a public comment requesting that we take a look at, instead of using this map, a natural resources map from Washington County. And I wanted to address that public comment. Go ahead, Mr. Blair.
Yeah, so, in regards to the comments that we all got from, Deb Walk, she's a neighbor of mine. I ran into her at a Rivermead social event Saturday after the letter had been sent. We discussed pretty much all this, went into detail on a bunch of stuff, and, the important points being, we came to the mutual conclusion that the Washington County maps were showing significant natural resource lines. We're showing local wetland lines, that those are apples and oranges, and we agreed on that, and that resolved that question. And then the other part being that the important thing, and you touched on this in your intro, that if it doesn't show a wetland, significant or otherwise, it doesn't allow that wetland to be ignored. Showing the significant wetland raises the red flag. Okay, we're going to do stuff about this. A developer has to have wetlands done, a real wetland on-site inventory, whenever they're developed in. Debbie says pretty much her concerns about this. So you can go ahead and address it. She's happy with it, and I'd like to let her know that I'm sure all the council appreciates. We say continually how much we appreciate citizens who are involved, concerned, and informed. She's consistently that, and I'm sure she's listening on Zoom. Thank you, Debbie. We appreciate getting this kind of input and insight. So that's something that happened after the letter she didn't know about yet.
Thank you, Commissioner Blair. I would also like to point out, and it's probably a little bit too late to pull up for Ron, because it's not particularly easy to find on short notice, but in the City Community Development Code, figure 16114-11, which is Class A and B upland habitat conservation areas, that is a map that was drawn up by Metro's Title 13 Natural Resource Protections within the Metro Code, and it much more matches what the Washington County Natural Resource Map looks like, because it shows all the upland habitat conservation areas around the riparian areas, leading all the way up Bull Mountain.
Yeah.
So it's a much broader, bigger map that you can kind of see. It's very colorful and much more, it looks a lot more impressive because it is mapping the entire area. And that also has regulations that are adhered to and processed by Metro if there's any disturbance in those habitat conservation.
That's not wetlands.
It's not wetlands. It's a separate chapter in the city code entirely. And Metro is also currently on revising that map and updating it.
But did Metro get a copy of this map for their update process?
Of the wetland map,
Yeah.
not sure how concerned Metro is necessarily with wetlands, that's more Department of State Lands purview. It's, basically you have wetlands in development areas, and you have uplands in development areas. And so if you have a delineation of, 5-acre lot, and 2 acres of it are wetlands, the rest of it that's not wetlands is broadly known as uplands. And if they're not on the upland natural resource, because there's class 2 and class A and class B, then it's generally known as just being developable. That's part of what Metro and cities take into account when they're doing developable land analysis during their urban growth boundary expansions.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from staff?
Just a quick question, Max, what grant were you referring to specifically, that was completed after the 5-year process? Was that the original Kingston Terrace grant?
Yes,
Okay.
so it's known as kind of under a few different names. It was awarded in 2019. It's DEP grant, but it's the Metro 2040 Vision grant, basically, is like the program that it's under. And it funded all of the not the TSP, but it funded the Kingston Terrace master planning.
Okay, and you said that we finished the last financial part of that?
Yes.
There were some funds withheld, how did that work?
Well, so these grants are reimbursement funds. So the city spends the money as it's going through the process and then requests them the money after the tasks are done. And then Metro gives that money as a reimbursement. And so since we had just finished this, then we were able to go to Metro and say, hey, we finished task 19, that was the local wetland inventory. So after you finish every one of the 19 tasks, you take it to Metro. They look at what you've done and they approve it, and then they say, okay, you can have your money. We'll now reimburse you for the money that you spent.
So the next question is, how much was it? The last, do you happen to know?
I don't recall off the
Okay,
top
all
of
right.
my head.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, we will have public comment. Context will be people who are in favor of the approval, those who are opposed, and those who are neutral. And we also may have people online that may want to testify. And I am going to start. Is there someone online who would like to speak in favor of the resolution? Yeah, could they raise their hands? Sorry. Okay. Is there anyone here in the audience that would like to speak in favor of the resolution? Seeing none, okay, we'll move to opponents. And is there anyone online that would like to speak against the matter? Please raise your hand. Okay. Is there anyone who would like to speak against the matter? Here, and you will have 3 minutes if there's anyone who wants to testify. Questions come in neutral.
That'll be after the.
After opposition. Okay. Seeing none, so anyone want to ask a question or make a neutral comment? Is there anyone online who would like to speak? Please raise your hand. Okay. Is there someone here who would like to raise a neutral point or has a question. Please give your name and address when you...
Daniel Brooks,
No, you have to speak, we have to be able to have the online people here.
Daniel Brooks, at 17819 Southwest Elsner Road, Sherwood, Oregon. And,
Soon to be King City.
not really, I did not come into it. My question is,
You need to be at the dais.
I have a question, I need to point to something. Is this protected right here? Yes. And that's what this does, it protects that? That
Correct.
pond?
That's correct.
Okay, so I asked that question, I've lived, that's my place right there, and I'm the only one that has not sold. So, the homes company called me the hole in the donut, but, they said they were gonna try to put a road through there. So that is, if you're saying that what we're doing is we're protecting that wetlands area, I would. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, the code itself prohibits any kinds of roads going through protected wetlands.
That's great. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. If there's no one else that would like to make a comment, I will close the public hearing. And it's time for discussion. Because you made your comment in response to his question, so I think we're ready for discussion.
I do want to just point out the exact code provision that I referred to Mr. Brooks. So it's 16-114-080 G2. No, sorry, 16-114-080H10.
There's got to be a way to make this easier to read for John Q. Person.
So H says, except as allowed in 16-114-080G, which illustrates the activities that are allowed, and most of them are rehabilitation, restoration, things of that nature. H lists the activities that are prohibited in wetlands that are protected, so within the 100-foot buffer around significant wetlands. Placement of new structures or impervious surfaces, excavation, drainage, grading, expansion of landscaping, disposal of refuse, discharge or direct runoff of untreated stormwater, intentionally. Streets, roads, paths, irrigation pumps, and so, that kind of covers it. So you can't have streets, you can't have roads, you can have paths, nor can you have new structures or impervious surfaces. That's like pavement.
So, to clarify this for me, what effectively would happen with this is we would substitute this map for the map that's currently with that ordinance.
Because if someone was to develop or request development in a land that has significant wetlands on the new map, but not significant wetlands on the old map, we wouldn't be able to process that. And that was the holdup for some of these developments until they actually were able to prove that not only are there, if there's no wetlands whatsoever on their property, then obviously there's no significant on the property. But we didn't know where every property had their wetlands.
And that's why we had to put a condition on every application that it would comply with final delineation. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Discussion, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, none?
Yeah.
Well, there's none.
Okay, I do have a question.
Okay,
And it's on basically the, town center part of this map. There are wetlands and they don't have a buffer zone around them. Does that mean that just omitted because that's a different map or?
Submitted because they were not recognized as being locally significant wetlands.
Oh, okay, so
So
what
they
can,
did not have the same amount of, they had to go through removal fill permits at the state, and so that they could build on top of them.
oh, so they can,
Yeah.
okay.
But the state, like I said, put them through the rigmarole, and I don't know exactly what the state required of new home companies, but the state required something to allow legally for them to fill those wetlands.
okay.
If I recall, part of that mitigation was to enhance, the purple wetland that is just below where the town center is going to be, because that's
Right,
actually
yeah.
featured, if you recall, there's a path that runs about 100 feet.
That's right, yeah, okay.
If there are no further comments or questions, I would entertain a motion to approve or disapprove.
We're making a recommendation, correct?
Yes.
Recommendation
Yeah.
to approve or
Recommendation to
disapprove.
approve the,
The ordinance isn't in front of you, but this will be an ordinance.
Yeah.
So I make a motion, recommend, approve, ordinance, which we will have a number for at a future date, approving the local wetland.
That ordinance will likely be 2026-01.
okay? Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Any further discussion before we vote? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Bellows,
Yes.
Commissioner Petrie,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes,
Chair Boehner.
Yes. Thank you very much, everyone, and, it's been a long process, as I said at the beginning, but it's great. We're going to have correct maps, really delineating the wetlands and the buffer zones, and that's what the whole process was about, to make sure we had the correct information. Is there any further business to come in front of the?
Not really much further business, but I was going to just provide a brief update.
Yeah.
Since we're on the subject of wetlands, I was selected after applying to be on a statewide rules-making committee for Department of State, or for the legislature, specifically for wetlands protection. So I'm one of 17 committee members. We've just had our first meeting Monday, I believe it was, and so that'll be a kind of a fun process, because if this is at all confusing to you, it's somewhat confusing to me. It seems to also be confusing to many members on this statewide committee, and so I think the legislature and the folks at Department of State Lands and DLCD are recognizing that this is a bit of a convoluted process and trying to find ways to streamline it while still maintaining all the strict regulations, but making it a little bit clearer for folks to understand and for cities to make. See how that unfolds, but I think our recommendations will be given to the legislature.
that's good.
Congratulations.
You're on.
Yeah.
Yeah, 27. It's for the long session. Generally, they don't take on anything new in the short session, because it's such a short.
Yeah, you're right. 'Cause
It's only
the committee will-
35 days.
So just a couple things on the, horizon. There, I believe, based off of just scheduling constraints, the most suitable meeting time for the next city, planning commission meeting is the fourth Thursday in January. Give us all a nice break and some time. But the two items on that agenda in the immediate right now that I have are deliberating or recommending the annexation of 137th and the BPA corridor, as well as, adopting, the code amendment for the parks provision. I believe we'll go with, requiring pocket parks for X amount of land based on. I think the way to navigate that will be to reduce setbacks and required lot sizes a little bit, just so that developers have a little bit more flexibility when trying to accommodate that park space. But those are the two things that I will be, having for you in January.
So are you gonna go ahead and write that, or are you gonna have a group work on it?
We could have a work session sometime before then, if you'd like, second week of January, but, it would be something that I will write, and if you want to see it before the hearing, we can certainly do that. I think it's gonna be relatively short.
Do people feel that they'd like to have a workshop?
I feel like at this point, we probably had, 2 workshops about it. And if you don't like it, you can ask during the hearing.
Okay, all right. If we have ideas, should we talk directly with you? Okay.
Thursday the 29th?
Yeah.
Is it Wednesday?
No,
It's a Wednesday.
The fourth.
Fourth Friday.
Fourth.
Friday.
Oh, the fourth Friday?
Yeah, Wednesday. It's fourth.
Fourth, so the 28th
Rather than
is the fourth Wednesday.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Fourth Wednesday,
The fourth Wednesday.
It's the fourth Wednesday,
what date is that?
which is the 28th.
Okay, yeah, the 28th.
That's a regular day.
The
Yeah,
regular.
okay,
Regular
sorry,
day.
yeah.
Yeah, as I told folks, you tentatively pencil in the second and the fourth Wednesdays, and then we'll say which ones are happening and which aren't, then you're gonna be covered.
Other just smaller pieces that I'm working on are, I'm currently applying for a second Oregon State Marine Board. Because earlier this month, we actually got the money that we requested, earlier last month, because we secured our land use agreement with BPA. The deadline, the hard deadline after an extension was November 1st, and we secured the deadline October 29th. And so I filled out the reimbursement form, sent all the invoices, gave them the land use agreement, didn't hear anything back. I just thought we were dead in the water, and then Mira comes to me and she's like, "What's this $70,000 check?" And I'm like, "I know that number." That's our grant money. And so I use that as, all right, that means that we must have done something right. So the deadline for the next cycle is January 5th, and I'm requesting the commission, I've already put it on the website and had Aaron send out some emails, but if you, as a citizen, would like to submit letters of support for this grant, then that would be very helpful. I've already received about 4 from some community members.
Max, I do have a,
See, we have to spend the money and then send them a bill, and they will eventually write the check.
My hope is that since that was the only condition for the first award, and the fact that we did everything that we needed to do, we provided all the deliverables on time, hopefully there won't be any more hurdles, and they'll trust the city can deliver on the second one. And Oregon State too, and as they told me in the hearing, they fund a project, they like to see the project through, because they don't want to just throw money at something not going to have public support. So the second grant, since it's the second cycle of 3 cycles, they have less buckets of money for every cycle. We're going to see if we can get enough money to reach 100% design, and so make the project shovel-ready. And when cycle 1 rolls around, I believe might be late 2026, we'll apply for construction. So we might be able to get the kayak in with the paddle launch in there.
Nice, nice.
Max,
Nothing moves.
I've got a couple of questions about this. What are the things that are tied to these grants in the event that we may not have money to actually complete it? If we don't, do we have strings attached that we have to pay back these grants?
I don't believe that there's any, I don't think you have to pay it back, but it's not a good look
try to stay away from those type of grants just in case.
Right, that was one of the reasons why when we got the Oregon Community Pathways grant to do some work for the future bridge, that looked like maybe the city was going in another direction at that time, and then we actually, after advising the council, decided not to pursue that, even though we were awarded it, because one of the conditions in the grant agreement that if the city at every point gives up on this project, they might be liable to have to pay it back to us.
That's why I was asking the question.
I don't
Is
believe
that-
Oregon State Marine Board has that within their grant agreements. They expect us to do the work that is within the scope of the grant agreement. But then if we just stop doing it. But another thing is what I'm going to bring to the council very soon is adding specifically the kayak launch to, I'm trying to call it the paddle launch now because people will go like canoeing and paddleboarding and stuff on it, but the paddle launch onto the community improvement project list, so that in the event that construction is relatively expensive, but these grants are also very generous with a 25% match, so, but we could use money to put that over the top without having to take any money from anywhere else. The SEC are specifically for parks and cannot be used for anything else.
SDCs can only be used for capital
Only be used for, well, the parks SECs can only be used for capital improvement projects that have been voted as capital improvement projects in the SEC.
Is this listed in the SDC task list?
It has been coupled with the West Side Trail.
As part of that.
And so since the West Side Trail seems to be maybe not quite a priority at the moment.
So the way CIPs work, capital improvement project list, is the council every couple of years makes up a new list. The city council will probably in January, February, we'll have a new list of CIPs for them to approve or consider. And
Not all of them will be new, I mean.
Yeah, no, not all.
Park and some of the other ones will probably remain in there, but.
And you can add, and there's three main things that you have to consider. It has to be a capital improvement, has to increase the use, and something else I can't remember off the top of my head right now. There's a scale that you.
Hierarchy.
So because this isn't now currently listed in the master plan as a project, how is it that we're allowed to take SDC funds from the Kingston Terrace development and apply to this? I'm trying to understand that.
Well, the SDCs that we have currently were SDCs that have been acquired through Kingston Terrace developments. Since we haven't gotten any parks SDCs King City proper developments, but you can use the SDCs for whatever you want, as long as it's on the capital improvements projects list, which is separate from the master plan. The master plan doesn't have anything to do with the SDCs.
Right.
The city as a whole gets SDCs. It's not divvied up by district or anything like that. If you get SDCs in one part of the city, you can use them in another part of the city. They're just in a big bucket. I was talking with Mira and Katie at the previous city council meeting, is that currently the city has about $560,000 in our SDCs for parks, sitting there right now.
Okay,
So, question. Theoretically, if I was writing a letter of support for this, what specifically does this grant allow us to do?
Grant, so grant one allowed preliminary engineering and design, surveying, feasibility, things, cultural surveys, geotechnical surveys, basically to get to what the milestone is called 30% design framework. What this grant will fund is to close that gap and get from 30% design to 100%. And ideally also get through the permitting process, because you need to have a lot of studies done as you're doing permitting. I mean, and that is essentially what 100% design is that you have all your permitting, so that's Department of State Lands, that's Army Corps of Engineers, whoever else. And then once we have 100% design, that'll be the end of this grant. So that's
You have to
going
do
from
an
30 to 100.
Do you have to do an IMS review?
I'm not sure. We will have to
Just
do,
environmental.
I think we did like a preliminary report for BPA because they were requiring NEPA as part of their land use. So if you're working in the Tualatin, it's,
Yeah.
pretty expensive.
Sorry, I can't remember what all of the words in the acronym are.
Now, you've given me enough on that.
Final design.
One other question on that. I've been shown a map, and I never take anything at face value until I've actually dug out where it came from, blah, blah, blah. It shows the improvements that we're looking to do. And also has dashed in road connection that crosses the entire power line, hits into the Rivermead Park. Is this 100% designed, any of this, that road?
No, that map doesn't apply to this project. You want the current maps?
I do.
I'll see about putting them on the website and under the tab for project list.
That'd be great.
We have 30% design right now.
Yeah.
Maps.
Cool.
I went to the Tualatin Riverkeepers Discovery Day this last year.
That was a little wet, wasn't it?
Cold. First day of summer, it was nice.
It was the worst day they could have.
They came to the city and they were like, hey, can you guys come to this Discovery Day? It's gonna be great. And we heard,
It'll be fun.
you've been working on this kayak launch, bring some concepts. And so I had all these papers under this tent. And at one point, the tent broke and they're all gone. So I think maybe one person came to my tent. Everyone else was just like, give me my kayak and let me get the heck out of here. Like, I did not want to be standing around in the rain. So I ended up just kind of becoming a stagehand there, and I was helping them disassemble everything by the end of the day. But they also, TRK is also fully supporting this project, and I'm meeting with Mark Fitzsimmons next week about something else. But and then, as I've mentioned before, we have executed our agreement with Metro for the Forest Park improvements. And I still have to touch base with city engineer, but we should be starting on that sometime soon. So we should be commencing on that relatively soon, which will be nice.
Is there any way we could put that fence back up?
Probably
Yeah.
not. It got stolen, and it took me a long time to put in, and it was expensive.
Actually, Max, the debris is over the edge of the cliff, so I'm guessing some kids pulled it out and threw the stuff toward the river.
I looked. I looked
It's
into
there.
the gully. It's there.
Not in the gully, but toward the river,
Yeah.
down the slope, and you can see the fence stakes down there, and then the orange netting and all that
It's
stuff.
all underwater now.
No, it's on the side of the hill, so it could be,
Oh.
you'd have to go down and dig it out, but it's there. So I'm guessing that,
Max is unappreciated.
I'm guessing there's probably, not somebody that wanted to steal them, but somebody that didn't like the idea of being blocked off.
I would have been shocked if someone stole them because each one of those weighs like 10, 15 pounds.
Yeah.
Like,
But it's there.
What we're talking about is there's a big gully just going into the river, and it's kind of dangerous, and Max went down, used his own time to build a fence to protect so someone wouldn't fall over into the gully, which is, 6 feet deep, something like
deeper than that.
that?
Yeah.
Okay, but anyway,
15 to 20.
but
Yeah, really?
somebody within a few weeks tore it all up.
Yeah. Where has that gone since we took that walk that day? That whole with Clean Water Services and,
Yeah,
They advised us on their erosion control measures, but it didn't really go very far.
Okay.
I feel like
they had ideas, but that was it. Okay.
could we request,
our own city engineer had their own engineering erosion control plan that is their engineering, because they have water experts. experts and hydrology experts and stuff.
They talked to us when they did that presentation almost a year ago now, about grant opportunities. Maybe it's time to ask them to come back and visit this particular issue and what grants might be available to help fund the remediation.
I believe I'm attending a, co-implementers meeting at their water treatment facility over there in Tigard
Mm-hmm.
in a couple weeks. So I'll see if I can throw my way around and talk to some of the,
Yeah, well, I think it would be nice if we could get a presentation now that the official document is in effect.
well, that's Metro. So, and Metro is just giving us the money to do it. Or are you talking about the regional
The
stormwater?
regional, yeah.
I mean, they had open houses and stuff. I think they held an open house just across the street at KCCA. So, I feel like forcing them to give presentations, they already did their own outreach.
Well, the problem is, not very many people would go to something like that.
And if we have it in a formal meeting, it will be on the record and anyone could watch the presentation.
Again, I think next week I'm meeting with the senior planner over at Tigard and, the senior planner in CWS. So I can,
I think that would be, I'm sure they would like to have the public really have an
I
opportunity.
feel like that would be better signal. City council meeting. A little bit of a higher turnout rate.
Okay, well, anyway, but I'd like that to get explained and how the hoops that have to be gone through to get that kind of a grant. Because that's gonna be an expensive project.
And it's
What, grant for what?
expensive if we,
What, grant for what? I'm trying to understand what
To remediate the gully.
oh, well, that's what Max has already got funds for.
Partial remediation. It's not going to completely solve the problem, but it will alleviate it for the
Right.
time being.
But,
words, is it the nature in the parks?
The nature and parks.
yes,
Right.
oh, right.
And then-
But there's CWS is gonna have a program to significantly fund total remediation. And I wanna make sure that if there's something we can do, that we don't miss out.
yeah.
Because they were talking very broadly about the grant opportunities that would be available.
I would caution on potentially looking at what they deem to be high priority. So I can't remember exactly where it is, but it's somewhere on Bull Mountain off Gardy, or off Bull Mountain Road. If you go up there, there's this little small park, and I think Tiger did this on their own, but they took out a house so that they can get construction. There's a nature trail, and
Oh,
they
yeah.
had
It's on top of the
same kind
reservoir.
of fluffing, but it was probably about 100 times more than ours. Like, it's impressive. You can walk along it for 100 yards, kind of thing. And the infill that they did is remarkable. So I'm wondering how many of those are in Clean Water Services service area that they would rather devote resources towards. But I can ask.
Well, it's a danger right now, and it's getting worse.
We'll have bridges.
Mm-hmm.
City engineers are going to release and ensure that the landings of those bridges are secured. And I have seen at least one very early concept of kind of make it more of a slope as opposed to the cliff that it is right now.
Mhm.
But those a little far away. We just got the executed agreement a few weeks ago. Metro was they had to go through a lot of legalese to get it written out, and they awarded it to a bunch of cities.
Well, I just don't want it to get forgotten.
First
It's not less grants, and it's more their credits. They have a credit system that they use from their revenue sources to potentially dish out to cities. But
Well, that's kind of one of the reasons it's important to figure it out. Okay.
I'll add that to my list of things.
I know. But they did a wonderful, it has been almost a year
Yeah,
since they
Rick
did that.
Faulkner and Margaret Burley.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the last thing is that just yesterday, I had a pre-application meeting with a developer who is looking to develop, the property over at Randall's Bike Shop, on 99
Oh,
W.
yeah.
So his early concept is a 42-unit townhome, with some stormwater and then potentially putting in a bridge, and there's like a little, like, forest area at the very back end of that lot that would have kind of like a nature trail and stuff.
Does that go over to the condos,
It's below the condos.
below the condos?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the condos with the stream,
Mhm.
yeah, so the south property.
Okay, it's that,
Mhm.
okay.
And so they have a lot of, they'll have a lot of technical hurdles that they'll have to jump over, but we'll do what we can, including a code amendment to allow townhomes in that zone, which currently doesn't.
What is its zone now?
Well, it will stay the same zone, it's limited commercial, but the town center, there's a town center master plan, which is different than the village. And in it, it calls for the limited commercial zone to allow for more residential options. And so that is clear cut to me to allow for single family if necessary, but at the time, there wasn't as much of a market for single family, so the code amendments that were put in place to address that call for more residential simply allow limited commercial to have multifamily, have any apartments within multifamily. So I think that their avenue for being able to put townhomes on that lot would be to do a code amendment, and there's not really a ton of developable land in that zone anyway, and homes. And Randall, the property owner, is staying on that property. He's going to partition his house off and sell the bike shop.
So here's the house that's right next to it?
Yeah, that's all one.
Okay. That's the partition it.
Yeah. Yeah, I went in there with a bike, 1991.
So that's
They
the
fixed it?
last order of business that I had to update the commission with, that I felt was important for you guys to know.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, so we should plan on a meeting the fourth Wednesday, which is the 28th of January. And I want to wish everyone a happy holiday,
Yeah.
and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn. I second it.
All those in favor?
Say aye.
We are adjourned at 7 p.m.
All right, look at that.
Okay. Yeah, then you have to tell me because I really like Joe a lot.
I like short meetings,
Yeah, me too.
Oh, I get it.
so on the mic,
Turn off your mic, folks.
turn off your mic.
No, there wasn't. You have it? Yeah.
That kind of.
Anyway.